This is Ohio.
This is Ohio.
My mom always said you shouldn't talk about religion at the dinner table.
Well, that's pretty good advice. People are quick to argue about their beliefs.
So why on God's green earth did you want to do a story about a pastor?
A few things attracted me to Karen Chakoian. One, she'd been at the same church for 23 years, and she still seemed to be pretty well loved and respected. Which is kind of rare, right?
Mm-hmm.
Also, I sensed a spirituality from her that seemed to transcend doctrine, and that was interesting.
Sounds.
And finally, the whole transition she was going through, that was really interesting to me. You still shredding?
I'm still shredding.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm still I'm almost done.
Are you?
Yeah.
This is Karen Chakoian. She is clearing out her office after 23 years as pastor of First Presbyterian Church in Granville. One of her tasks is to shred.
So what I'm doing, I've got lots of personal notes about people in the congregation that I've taken over the years. And it's private, so it needs to be shredded. So that's what I'm doing, is just safely disposing of it.
I've seen ministers at the end of their times as pastors, shorter times than Karen's, who were burned out from the heavy spiritual, emotional, and intellectual lifting of the work, and from what Karen calls the colossal messiness that church life can be.
There are so many things I want to say to you. Fortunately for you, over the last 23 years, I've had plenty of time to say them already. I've spent more than a third of my life with you, and the time has just flown by. Seeing all the pictures at last night's party really brought that home. We have been through a lot together. And boy,
but from Karen and from this church community, I don't sense this burnout or this messiness. I spent time with Karen the day after a busy weekend, her farewell party, and her final church service. I find someone who has learned to stay close to the Spirit, even during times of transition.
So this is praying over the water. And for me, what that means is inviting the Spirit to be present.
During her last service, Karen performed a sacrament of baptism, which I photographed. We are looking at the photo now. Jack Fallon, a local teenager, stands tall, his eyes closed, his face open. Karen is bowing over the baptismal bowl.
And understanding that it's not a mechanical kind of, I do this so something happens, it's not magic. It's the presence of the Spirit over the water, in the water, so that it becomes a sacred moment. Mm-hmm. And that's what I see in this picture. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And Jack's face, it's just so beautiful. Mm-hmm. He's just completely ready, completely open.
So when you're doing something like this, how do you connect with the Spirit in order to pray over the Spirit? I mean, how do you not let that be mechanical?
I would say that there have been times in my ministry where, not so much here, but like at the communion table, that it would be kind of hear the words and you just do the thing and make sure you don't trip over your words. And I think it's because of so many years of ministry feeling the Spirit that I don't want to settle for anything less than that, It's like, the Spirit is here, pay attention. Mm-hmm. It's not that I'm invoking it. It's like the Spirit is here, pay attention, and be present in it. And as soon as I do that, it's like there's this energy that just rises up, and it's just there, and it's just so joyful to be in the middle of that. It's almost like stepping inside of it. It's like, it's right there. All I have to do is step inside it. And it's there. And it's always there. It's just a matter of being aware of it and then being in its presence.
I have felt God's Spirit here. There have been moments during worship when I have stood up to preach, and a silence would fall gently, as if we were all listening for God, as if I could feel the breath of God in my own breath and yours. I could feel the light and energy of God rise up in me as I saw it rise up in you. What an incredible gift to experience God's presence with you, in you, through you, in my own life. This is holy ground.
This is the last sermon that Karen will give as pastor of First Presbyterian Church. She has shared many memories with me about how she and the church community grew closer during crises like 9/11, the death of a beloved associate pastor, and prayerful sessions about how to evolve church doctrine. The church community also supported Karen through personal challenges, a divorce, and a bout with cancer. And then the surprising joy of discovering love later in life and getting married. What has allowed Karen to successfully manage such an unusually long term as pastor? An earthy and accessible spirituality, one that is curious and open to growth. She tells me about this seminal moment in her spiritual development. She took a retreat to Iona Abbey in Scotland early in her ministry. A musician was playing piano one day as she walked into the abbey for some prayerful reflection.
In the ancient Iona Cathedral sanctuary, that's where he would play. And so I came in and I was just sitting in a pew, and he was actually, the piano was in a balcony up above, and so the music was like floating down, and it was all candlelit. And I remember just sitting in the pew and having that music wash over me. And this vision came into my mind, and I pictured myself inside a room that was like a round room, and in the room was a giant church that took up all the space. And my family was in this room, and I was in one space, and my son Ben was in another, and Luke was in another, and my husband was in another, and they were all wrapped into, each of us was in our own little world. And the church took up all the space. And I started weeping because I realized that I had made the church an idol. It was an idol, and it was taking up all the space. And instantly, the image shifted, the church disappeared, and in the center was a round table where we could gather around the table and see each other and be together. And it made me realize what I'd been doing to my family, but it also made me realize what's important in the church. And it's the gathering at the table, it's not the institution.
That's really the central tension, isn't it?
It is, exactly. That's the heart of it. Yep, that's the heart of it. And part of what I said in my sermon about what's essential and what's optional, that's something I had to learn over and over again. And, that after that image wasn't the last time I made that mistake, especially when the church was shrinking in size or the finances were hit with a financial crisis in 2008. If I just work harder, everything's going to be okay. If I were just a better pastor, everything would be fine. If I just, whatever. Like, I'm going to make this work. I can fix this, and there's an arrogance in that that's not helpful.
I've seen it in the way that you have tried on new ways of doing things. You know the difference between what is essential and what is optional. What's the goal and what's the means? You're not Pharisaic about following rules, which for a Presbyterian church is no small thing. You know how to do things decently and in order, and you know that is not the heart of the gospel message.
This is the hard question for all of you. Do you, the members and friends of First Presbyterian Church, release Karen Chakoian from service as your pastor? Please answer.
We do.
We do, with thanks to God. Do you, Karen Chakoian, recognize and accept the completion of your ministry with this congregation?
I do, with thanks to God.
The dissolution of her pastoral call is an emotional moment in the church and a powerful ritual to observe. Karen bows forward, lifts her stole from her neck and up over her head, folds it neatly, and lays it down upon the table. She had helped plan this ritual, but upon reflection, even she was struck with the power of the action.
So yesterday, during the day, I just felt this, oh my gosh, just like I was carrying so much in my heart. And I realized that it was having seen all these people on Saturday and Sunday who'd been part of my life and ministry. And I could, I remember burying your mother. I remember going to the hospital with you. I remember when your child was going through a mental health issue, whatever. It was all these things that we had been through together. And I just felt all of it. And I realized that for me, ministry was holding the space for other people's lives and trying to walk alongside as appropriately as possible, whether it's to give strength or a listening ear or prayer or whatever it was, perspective. And so taking off that stole and laying it down was setting down all their lives at once. And trusting that I was putting it on the table, and the communion table is the place where we gather, just like that image from Iona. It's the table where God is present. I'm not abandoning them. I'm not forgetting them. But this is no longer my work to hold the space for them.
Friends, I have no idea who your next pastor will be. All I know is this: God is going to have a hand in it. Because at the end of the day, we are all part of something so much bigger than ourselves. And in every moment and in every minute, God is at the center of it all. Thanks be to God. Amen.
The end of Karen's sermon contains words of comfort for the congregation, but she too faces uncertainty. Where will her new church home be? Who will be the members of her new church family? There is something that Karen does know about her future. It's the reason Once she knew that it was time to retire, she was able to find the specific date to retire.
The next part was, well, when? When's the right? Is it, before Christmas? Is it before Lent? Is it before? And I realized that this, in 2024, Ash Wednesday and Valentine's Day are the same day. And that happened in 2018. And for me, every Ash Wednesday, we do the imposition of ashes, and people come forward, and the pastors say, remember you are dust, and to dust you will return. And every time I would do that, I'd look at this congregation and wonder whose funeral I would do the next year, knowing that I would, and not knowing who it would be, but knowing that I would. And my heart would break. So, and I'm married now, and I have this husband to share Valentine's Day with. And I thought, I know the time. Now I know the time. And that's why I picked the end of January to retire.
So that you could have Valentine's Day with your
With my husband. Exactly.
I heard the voice of Jesus say,
Performed by Robin Brown, Steve Bain, and Jack Heyer.
all creatures of our God and King.
Performed by Jim Van Reeth, Steve Bain, and Jack Heyer.
Additional music for This Is Ohio by Matt Jackford.
This story was produced by Jack Schuler and Doug Swift and edited by
Doug Swift.
To see a multimedia version of this story, including pictures,
Go to our website at thereportingproject.org. Thanks for listening.
see you next time.